It's rooted in your strength, not theirs. And here's the truth. When you begin to live like this, people start to take notice, not because you're trying to control them, but because you're clearly in charge of yourself. You become the calmest one in the room. You no longer react to every ripple because you're firmly planted. People pick up on that. It's attractive because it's uncommon. Now, does it mean you'll never be shaken? No. You're still human. Life will surprise you sometimes. But emotional discipline, what we just covered, joined with intentional control, which we're talking about now, is what helps you return to your core quicker, steadier, and with more clarity. You'll still feel the storm, but it won't steer your course. And that's the point. Control isn't about creating a life without challenges. It's about shaping a mindset that can face those challenges. It's about trusting yourself, not because you think things will always go perfectly, but because you know exactly who you'll be when they don't. So the next time you feel yourself slipping into overthinking or the urge to fix everything and everyone, stop for a moment. Ask yourself, is this really mine to handle? If it is, move with intention. If it isn't, release it without shame. Now let me tell you something most people misunderstand. Silence is not weakness. We live in a culture that celebrates noise. We're constantly encouraged to speak up, to fire back, to always have the final word. Silence is often mistaken for giving in, for being passive, for losing. But let's flip that idea, because in truth, silence, when chosen with purpose, is one of the strongest tools you can learn to master. See, silence doesn't mean you have nothing to say. Effect, it means you're saving your words for the right moment, or maybe choosing never to speak at all, because not every situation deserves your voice. There's a big difference between staying quiet out of fear and staying quiet out of strategy. One is avoiding. The other is being wise. Think back to the last time someone really got under your skin. Maybe it happened online, at work, or during a family dinner. You probably felt it build up. That tight feeling in your chest, the instant need to think up a comeback. You wanted to defend, to explain, to correct. That's your ego rising up. It wants to be heard, wants to prove a point. But silence, real, grounded silence, says, I don't owe you my energy just because you're trying to pull it from me. That's real strength. Let's take it a step further. When communication is emotionally charged, it's being driven by the limbic system, the emotional hub of the brain. That part of you wants instant resolution, immediate comfort. But reacting from that place often ends in regret. Silence, on the other hand, taps into the prefrontal cortex, the brain's control center. That's where your emotional balance lives. That's where real strategy is formed. So, when you choose silence in a heated moment, you're doing something rare and powerful. You're choosing long-term peace over short-term satisfaction. You're saying, you don't steer my emotions, I steer them. There's a quote I go back to often: don't raise your voice, strengthen your argument. And sometimes, strengthening your argument means not making one at all. Especially when the conversation isn't about understanding, but about pride. You've seen it. Two people going back and forth, not to connect, but to win. Louder, harsher, trying to be more visible. Effect. But what if the real victory is in not engaging at all? There's a special kind of peace that comes from knowing who you are, from no longer needing to constantly prove it. That calm energy. It can be intimidating. Silence makes people uneasy because it forces them to face their own thoughts. And if they were trying to trigger you, your calmness throws them off. It strips them of the control they thought they had, your reaction. Thinkers, philosophers, and spiritual leaders across cultures have always known this truth. In Taoism, they speak of wu wei, effortless action, the wisdom of knowing when not to act. In Christianity, there's the teaching of turning the other cheek, not out of weakness, but out of inner discipline. In Buddhism, mindfulness reminds us that not every thought needs to be spoken. Silence holds a power that's recognized across time and belief systems because it rises above the need to overpower. It speaks a language only the truly secure understand. It dominates. It speaks a language only those who are truly secure can understand. Now, I'm not telling you to be silent when something is wrong or to hide your truth. That's not real strength. That's just fear pretending to be courage. What I'm really saying is, use your voice like a skilled craftsman uses their best tools, with thought and intention. Not every situation needs your words. Not every rude comment deserves your reaction. Not every storm needs your presence. When you speak from calmness instead of emotion, your voice has power. People feel that difference. There is a quiet strength in self-control. The one who doesn't speak every time they're pushed is often the one others pay close attention to when they finally say something. Because when they talk, it has meaning. Silence gives you space, it helps you filter. When you resist that first reaction, you give your mind time to think clearly. You understand things better. You stop just hearing what your feelings say and start hearing what's really being said. And that still moment becomes your advantage. That's when you gain back your ground, your vision, and your strength. In difficult situations, silence is often your smartest move. Not as a way to avoid, but as a moment to breathe, to shift the energy. It can stop a fight, change how things unfold, or simply protect your peace. Silence can also be the line you draw, the decision not to step into toxic situations anymore. You don't have to yell that you're done. You simply stop engaging. That alone sends a very clear message. And yes, staying silent takes confidence. It takes strength inside. It takes the ability to be misunderstood, misjudged, and even wrongly labeled, and still choose peace over noise. That's not easy. But people who learn how to do this, who can stay grounded while everything else spins around them, they become the quiet leaders. You don't have to attend every argument someone invites you to. You don't have to correct every wrong story. You don't have to respond just because someone is trying to pull you in. Your peace is yours, not something you owe anyone. And once you really know that, you stop performing for others and start leading your own life. Silence isn't running away, it's being present. It's choosing to keep your energy safe, to hold on to your strength, to speak with meaning instead of reacting with noise. So the next time someone approaches you with drama or life feels out of control, do this. Don't speak right away. Stay quiet for a moment. Sit with that feeling. Take a deep breath. Watch what's happening. Let the urge to defend yourself fade away. And then, if you decide to say something, let it come from a place of calm and clarity, from a solid place within. And if you don't say anything at all, that's a powerful choice too. That shows real self-control. Because our natural instinct is to defend, to explain, to be understood. But silence teaches us how to sit in that uncomfortable space, to let our actions speak louder than our words ever could. To trust that the truth doesn't need to be constantly explained. It just needs to be shown, again and again. In many ways, silence is the voice of people who have outgrown the need to impress. When you truly know who you are, when you've built something strong inside, you don't need to talk about it all the time. Your energy becomes your answer. Your calm presence becomes your message. And your silence becomes your strength. So when you feel that urge to speak out, to defend yourself, to be heard, pause. Ask yourself this: am I coming from a place of strength or from insecurity? Am I trying to share something real or just trying to be noticed? And if it's the second one, maybe silence is the better way. Because the loudest one in the room isn't always the most sure of themselves. And the strongest person doesn't need to raise their voice. Sometimes, the strongest move is to raise your expectations and let silence take care of the rest. We live in a world that's obsessed with announcing everything. People constantly tell the world what they're about to do, what they're planning, what they hope to become. There's this pressure to let everyone know that you're making progress, that you're working on something big. But here's what many don't understand. If your focus moves from doing the actual work to talking about the work, you're already heading the wrong way. Real growth doesn't need to be advertised. It creates its own light. When you're truly focused, when you stay quiet, when you move with purpose and stay grounded, your results become impossible to ignore. You don't have to convince anyone of your growth. You just have to keep going. Let others talk. Let them assume. Let them wonder. Because if you stay true to your path, if you stay committed in silence, Your life will speak louder than any words ever could. That's the difference between movement and momentum. There's a quiet trap in always needing to explain each step. Psychologically, it gives us a false feeling of achievement. When you talk about what you're going to do, your brain receives a quick reward, like it's already been done. Ironically, the more you talk about your goals, the less drive you might feel to actually achieve them. But silence keeps you close to the action. It removes the fantasy and leaves you with the truth. Let your progress do the talking. That idea isn't just about image. It's about being real. It's about matching your actions to your values so closely that there's no need to explain yourself. People can sense it. They might not know your plans, but they'll notice something's different. Your energy sharpens. Your focus tightens. Your presence becomes quieter but stronger. That's not by chance. That's personal growth. And real growth doesn't announce itself. It works quietly in the background, slowly and purposefully, until one day, the results are impossible to ignore. Just like you don't hear a tree growing, you don't need to hear someone changing. But you'll notice. The habits improve, the decisions shift, the boundaries become firm. You can't pretend that. And you don't need to talk about it for it to be real. That's where real respect is earned. Not through promises, but through consistent patterns. People eventually stop listening to your words and start watching your behavior. That's human nature. You can say the right things, read the right books, even quote the right ideas, but if your actions don't match, it all fades. But when your behavior reflects what you say, when your energy remains steady, you don't need a script. You just live it. That doesn't mean you should never share your progress or celebrate success. That's natural. That's healthy. But the reason behind it matters. If you share from a place of fulfillment, it feels whole. But if you share because you need others to validate you, it feels unsettled. One comes from stability, the other from seeking, and people who understand, who are also doing deep personal work, they'll feel the difference, because they're doing it too. They aren't caught up in noise. They're not impressed by the loudest voices. They're in tune with energy, with consistency, with presence. That's what speaks to them. And that's what reaches you when you're truly focused. Real progress is usually not glamorous. It's early mornings, quiet nights, saying no when yes would be easier. It's repeating the small tasks over and over, even when no one is there to see it. That's the part most people miss. They want applause before they've committed to the process. But those who stay committed, even when it's uncomfortable, they're the ones who rise. And the beautiful part of letting your progress speak is that it creates a confidence that doesn't need to be shown off. You're not pretending until you get there. You're growing into it step by step. And that kind of growth doesn't just shift how people see you. It transforms how you see yourself. It changes the way you think about who you are. You go from saying, "I hope I can," to knowing, "I will." Not because you posted it once on social media, but because you've lived it again and again in silence. You've built trust with yourself. And that kind of self-trust, that's rare. That's priceless. That's why the strongest people you'll ever meet are usually not the loudest. They don't need to say they're powerful. You feel it. It's in the way they carry themselves. It's in how they choose to respond or not respond. Affect. It's in how they stay calm in a world full of noise. You'll begin to notice that the more you value progress over performance, the quieter your life becomes. And that quiet brings peace because you're no longer trying to gain approval. You're not acting for an audience that changes opinions every 5 minutes. You're just doing the work, and you're doing it for the right reasons. When you show up daily for yourself, not for attention, not for praise, but because your dream needs it, there's dignity in that. There's strength in that. It doesn't matter if no one notices right away. What matters is that you don't stop. Because here's the truth. Real success starts out quietly. It happens where no one's watching, and then suddenly, it shows up in a way that can't be denied. Not because of what you said you'd do, but because of what you actually did. Not because of who you said you are, but because of who you truly became. So keep going quietly, stay grounded, stay focused.